Hey, you're traveling.
that was a bit easier.
Long way down.
Now for something completely different. Here I go with highs and lows for another exciting weather show. Maps all drawn, pointer ready. That's why I'm called Fast Eddie. I can feel a cold front coming through, and there's nothing much that I can do. Your weekend's gonna be ruined, but it's not my fault.
Edwin Maher used to be the most popular news anchor and weatherman in Australia. Now he came to China, becoming the first non-Chinese news anchor for the state television channel CCTV International. This is Edwin's story. 你好.
Oh, ni hao, Zheng.
Yes, I wonder how long have you been in China?
I came to China in May 2003, and I just realized the other day that it's almost 6.5 years. So it's quite a long time.
Well, as you mentioned in your book, China is a country you initially had no intention of visiting. So what factors did you take into consideration of changing your mind, making you live in China for over 6.5 years?
So China was never some place I considered going, but it was only because one day I was sitting at home in my house in Melbourne, Australia, after my wife had died some 2 years later, and I had my old shortwave radio on, and I heard a broadcast coming from somewhere. I wasn't sure, but it was in English, and they said, "This is CRI broadcasting to Australia. And if you can hear us, here's our email address." So I sent them off an email, said the broadcast was very clear. And when I sent the email, I included some information about my background in journalism and broadcasting. And then 3 or 4 days later, they responded and offered me a job to come to work as a voice coach with the English service of CRI. And at first I thought, well, I'm not going to China. What do I want to go there for? And I talked it over with my kids, and they said, why not? Why don't you do it? It'd be an adventure for you. And after sleeping on it for 24 hours and then another day or two thinking about it, I made the decision and said, okay, I'll do it.
So when you come to Beijing, what is your impression of the city?
Oh, I think the overwhelming impression of Beijing was the people everywhere. And I'd never seen so many people just on the footpath and on bikes, of course. Then in 2003, there were more bikes. There were certainly a lot of cars on the road as well. I didn't realize Beijing was so big. And well, I think the things that appealed to me was just the difference. You know, everything gave me something new to think about, and cleared my mind of all the other problems and so forth that I'd been concerned about when I was in Australia. This gave me something totally new to think about. And, you know, just the mere fact of having to cross the road was such an adventure.
I know you have a lot of Chinese friends in Beijing and also a Chinese family. So do you feel you have any barriers in communicating with your friends?
Well, I guess there will always be some barriers because of my inability to speak the language. There are two reasons, I suppose. One is because so many people here speak English. The other is because I've been very lazy in learning Chinese. You know, I can always make myself be understood if I'm buying something. I have no fear about going anywhere and talking to anybody, asking questions. I will use the actions, the body actions, I guess, to tell them and explain what I want. So communicating here hasn't been a great problem.
You have been to many places in China. So could you shortly describe your recent trip?
31 hours we were on this train from Beijing to Ermei, and that's the place in Sichuan where we got off, and we got in a taxi and we went to a city called Leshan, and then we got in another cab and we landed in the little village. We arrived in the little village where his parents lived. And I had no idea what I was in for. I thought it would be a normal kind of a house, but it was right in the middle of the countryside, beautiful countryside. But this little house, and in one end of the house there were 2 pigs, and in the other end of the house there were 2 cows, and there was nothing on the floor. It was just like a stone floor. But they were very, very welcoming to me, very, very happy to see me. We couldn't speak anything in the way of, Chinese or English because and when I wanted to go to the bathroom, I was shown where to go, and there was this hole in the ground. And I had seen squat toilets before in Beijing, the first time I'd ever seen them in my life, but here was a real squat toilet. And the pigs were there. They were right there next to me in the bathroom. Yeah, they were wandering around. So I'm trying to go to the toilet.
How's it fitting?
Pigs are looking at me and running around. It's very distracting.
Okay, thank you for you giving me an interesting story and your adventure. So finally, I want you to give me a few words to, include your 6.5 years in China. So what kind of words you want to give?
Over my lifetime, I've done a lot of things. I've been to a lot of places around the world and done many things. But that's been over a period of several decades. Mm-hmm. But in the 6.5 years I've been in China, I think I have had so much excitement. I've done things that I didn't think were possible, never considered ever doing. And I often think back to the time just before I came here when I was working maybe in the garden at the back of my house, thinking, what am I going to do for the next few years? And when all this happened, it sort of took me into a new dimension. And I have really had an exciting time here. Every day has been different. Beijing has been such an exciting city. Certainly in the lead up to the Olympic Games, being lucky enough to go to the Olympic Games and seeing many of the events, and then watching the city of Beijing change with its new subways, its new infrastructure, and everything changes every day. The weather's improved dramatically in the 6 years I've been here.
Get your hat, leave your worries on the doorstep. Just direct your feet to the sunny side of the street. Can't you hear a pitter-pat? It's the happy tune, that's your step. Life can be so sweet on the sunny side.
Adrian.
I used to walk in the shade with my blues on parade, but I'm not afraid, not anymore. This rover's crossed over, and if I never have 8 cents, I'll still be as rich as Rockefeller. Gold dust at my feet on the sunny side of the street, on the sunny side of the street, on the sunny side of the street.